Planning Advisory Committee meeting of Tuesday, June 25th for the town of Quispamsis. With that being, we'll move on to item 2. Can I have approval of the agenda, please? Motion to approve the agenda. Mr. Bishop,
So moved.
can I have a seconder on that? Brenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Can we have a vote on that, please? With that, we'll move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. None being, we'll move on to item 4, approval of previous minutes. Any adjustments to the minutes? None being, can I have a motion to approve, please? Mr. Guest,
So moved.
can I have a seconder on that?
That, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brent. Can we have a vote on that, please? That motion's carried unanimously. With that being, we'll move on to item 5, business arising from previous minutes. Can I have a motion to receive and file, please? Brenda,
So moved.
seconder on that? Mark?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can you have a vote on that, please? That motion's carried unanimously. That being, we'll move on to item 6, unfinished business, 6A. That being, requesting approval to erect an accessory structure greenhouse as a discretionary use such that it spans 2 PIDs at 197 Pentonville Road, PID 303-40244 and PID 303-40251. With that being, could you come up to the podium, state your name for the record? And Jennifer, you want to introduce this item first?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee members. As PAC will recall, this item was tabled from the January 5th meeting, where the notice of decision indicated that the item be tabled until such time as a revised site plan is submitted to the town identifying that the greenhouse is being isolated to Civic 197 with a setback value of at least 6 meters from any property line to the main building on the lot. Pardon me. In the staff report for that meeting, it did detail that there was a greenhouse that was erected on the property that did span 2 PID numbers. Now, each PID had a separate interest, a different owner. Since that time, the applicants have worked with their legal counsel, and they have proceeded to have the interest of each PID placed in the same name. So all 3 PIDs from 193 straight through to 199 Pettingill are now under the same ownership. However, when they went to consolidate the lot and have that line removed, it was noted that all encumbrances need to be removed from the properties in question that are being asked to be consolidated, and this would have caused some financial hardship. So the applicant's lawyer reached out to me. We had a conversation, and subsequent to that, I had a conversation with the Director of Planning, Mr. Stephen Stone, and was advised that staff could look at the consolidation of the lots as an administrative consolidation, and since the interest is the same interest ownership, that we could look at that as being already consolidated and ignore that center line that was causing the problem in regarding the placement of the greenhouse originally. So with that, we're bringing dusting off the file and bringing it back to the PAC so that a decision can be made regarding this. Staff are recommending that the discretionary use, the greenhouse, be approved at this time, and that the permit fees be doubled, and that the landowners enter into a development agreement for the greenhouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, you would have received the same information we did in the mail. Is there
Yes.
anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or members of the public asking you some questions?
No, everything seems clear.
What was your last name?
Arsenault.
Oh.
I'm the co-owner of that property. All
Okay.
three PIDs. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brent?
Mr. Chairman, more so for the staff. With that greenhouse, we're now going to end up with 4 accessory buildings on the property. Is there any ramification from having that many accessory buildings on those 2 PIDs?
And through you, Mr. Chair, I did research this. There are requirements in Section 8 for residential building lots. They can only have 3 accessory buildings per lot and are restricted to occupy less than or 10% or less of the total lot area. However, that same provision is not part of Section 21, which does deal with institutional zoning. There are only 2 requirements for an accessory structure in institutional. Well, 3 really. It's a discretionary use primarily. And under that, there are 2 other requirements. The first is that the building be less than 2 stories high, and that none of the building be found in a required yard for the main building. And in this case, neither of those are true. So, thank you.
Any other questions from PAC members to the applicant or staff? None being, is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone online or in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Brent, do you have something further?
I just have one question, just clarification. So when the applicant's lawyer goes to register the new ownership on that lot where the greenhouse is presently sitting 3 feet over, is that lot line going to be aligned to put the entire greenhouse where it should be, or is it still going to be? Okay, so when the applicant's lawyer goes to register the new ownership, is the lot lines going to be aligned, or are they going to stay as is?
The lot lines will show on any map. There will be that line of separation between the 197 and what used to be 199.
Question is, are they going to shift? Is the lot line going to shift so that the greenhouse is sitting on 1 PID as opposed to straddling 2?
What is being recommended is that the greenhouse remains where it is, which is straddling that line that I've been advised by our director of planning that we can, for all intents and purposes, treat as if it's not there.
They are. They're already registered.
We only come up with the sale, comes in and maybe
Yes, there's a mortgage on 2 of the properties, so we would have to raise over $1 million in order to merge the 2 PIDs.
I wasn't saying merging the 2 PIDs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking the question is, with existing lot line is now, when the transactions were done, why the lot line wasn't adjusted at that time and avoid this whole.
myself, I think it was a deal with surveying and requirements and new property lines. I think
Okay.
we got agreement to do it, and so did they, that it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. With that being, no one in the audience going for or against, no other further questions from PAC. Member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please.
I'll put a motion forward, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Brent, or Kendall.
Thank you. If you can hear me clearly, or if you have a problem, just let me know. I recommend that the Planning Advisory Committee approve the greenhouse as a discretionary use under Section 21B1A at 197 Pettingill Road, PID 3034 0244 and 3034 0251, subject to the following terms and conditions. Number one, the 5-meter buffer along abutting residential properties be enhanced to provide screening as required by the existing development agreement and is to be done in consultation with town staff and to be completed within 1 year of the date of this approval. A development permit is obtained for the accessory structure. And number three, the landowners enter into a development agreement with the town as per section 21B1 of zoning bylaw number 038. And there was a fourth one. I understood staff wanted the fees doubled in this case.
Through you,
If that's
Mr.
the
Chair,
case,
that is correct. I did omit that in my report. Section 27 does allow us to double the development permit fees if we actually have to if the project starts before the permit's issued.
Okay, thank you.
so I would include that as the fourth recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Kendall. Can I have a seconder on that, please?
I'd just like to speak to the first condition. Unfortunately, Mr. Mason wasn't here when I was able to express to the rest of the committee members that the concern had been removed from the staff report and that first condition also had been stricken. So I would recommend that we remove the first condition from Mr. Kendall's motion. The others can remain.
Yeah, so right now there'll be three conditions: double the permits, a development permit is obtained for the accessory structure, and the landowners enter into a development agreement. Perfect, thank you. Can I have a seconder on that? Mr. Bishop?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any debate in that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried 3-2. So, yep, the votes, it's up there, right there, who's voting against, and, oh, do you get that?
Yeah, I have it.
She has that. Okay, voting 3-2. 3-4, 2 against. So with that being, you have a letter in the mail next week with your, 5 to 7 business days with your letter in the mail granting approval. So please work with the town to have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place. Thank you. Now we'll move on to new business. 7A, zoning bylaw amendment 038-40, 40. And we'll get to this in a minute. Zoning bylaw amendment to permit accessory dwelling units in the detached garages. Jennifer, can you open that up for us, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee members. Planning staff have been receiving a number of inquiries and requests to place apartments, accessory dwelling units in detached garages. Now, currently, the way that the building or the bylaw is written, that's not possible because of section 8G1 DIII, which states it cannot be used as a dwelling unit. So we did have an application for a garden suite, and we were going to bring it forward it was going to be similar to and compatible with a garden suite, and was asking to place it in the garage, in a detached garage. And Mr. Colburn brought it to my attention, so I reached out to legal counsel and was advised that Mr. Colburn was 100% correct that if we wanted to permit accessory dwelling units in detached garages, that we would need to go through a zoning bylaw amendment to strike these words, not to be used as a dwelling unit. Staff spoke with Stephen Stone, again, the Director of Planning. Mr. Colburn and I had a conversation with him, and it was encouraged to allow this type of housing as a way of increasing densities in a gentle way within neighborhoods that are already existing, with already existing infrastructures. Now, there was a concern when I brought it forward to council that the buildings may not be built to withhold that type of development. However, what we're seeking through this zoning bylaw amendment is actually to permit a land use, whether it's able to fit into a detached garage, whether the garage can withstand that type of development. That's really up to a building code review, and so I would leave that with you to ponder, that this is more of a land use request, and that the details of the building would be sussed out at the time of the building application and through the building department. Gentle densities overall are being encouraged through most zoning bylaws and municipal plans lately. I'm sure you've heard lots of chatter about this just on the regular news, how changes are coming to our Canadian neighborhoods, and we're being encouraged almost financially by organizations, sort of like the carrot. So increase your densities and we will provide funding to help you with your water system or what have you. So making these changes in our zoning bylaw puts us in favor, if you will, more so when other agencies are looking to see how we're willing to meet the crisis in housing. So with that, I will leave with you for discussion this possibility of allowing accessory dwellings in detached garages as a land use available here in Quispamsis, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any members of PAC have any questions for town staff? Brent?
The question, Jennifer, is did town council have any concern about short-term rentals, Airbnb? That seems to be the new concern. Everybody's doing this, and then it's like, oh, but we can't do long-term rentals because everybody's doing this Airbnb. So I guess that's my only question: is the town council ask any questions?
And through you, Mr. Chair. I don't recall any questions about Airbnb. I know that they seemed pretty receptive to the idea of people being able to provide housing to family members on site.
Brenda?
Just a quick question. If this changes, and I don't have a problem with, what about parking? If you have a small house with a small driveway, you're still able to build something with a garage for more cars? Because they're not the garage for the cars, but the people and the residents living there. Is it going to have to be X number of parking spaces or something like that?
And through you, Mr. Chair, currently the bylaw requires 1.5 parking spaces per residential dwelling unit. However, the accessory dwelling section, I can't remember the section off the top of my head, but in that section it does include that you do require a parking stall for any additional accessory dwelling units. So the provisions of that would be in play for any accessory dwelling, whether it's in the house or in a garage.
Because right now you can have a house and apartment in the house, 2 dwellings, so that's going to be it. You're not going to be able to build another one. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Precisely, you would only still ever be allowed to have 2 units in an R1 zone. That is the maximum permitted number of dwelling units on a lot. You are permitted up to 2, and of course you have to meet certain provisions of the bylaw and the lot size area. What services are provided at all plays part.
Mr. Bishop.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Jennifer. So when someone comes to us to approve a detached garage, now basically in the description, there will not be a clause saying that it cannot be used as a dwelling unit. So every detached garage that comes to us from now on can be used as a dwelling unit, but then would have to get approval through, I guess, through development, I guess, in order to become a dwelling unit? Is that how it's going to just be policed, or is because, I guess if it doesn't say they can't do it, they may do it without us knowing as well, too, I guess. I'm not sure if I agree with it just to be blanketed, or, if someone comes to us, we say, okay, yeah, you're not gonna use it as a dwelling unit, so that when it says it's not a dwelling unit, it can't ever be a dwelling unit unless they come back to PAC. But for us to leave it wide open for everyone to be able to be a dwelling unit, I don't really get the policing part of it, I guess. Maybe that's my question.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I believe you're bang on, Mr. Bishop, in that we are saying that we would like to move that restriction to make that a possibility that people could change their detached garages, the upper portion, whatever, into a living space. But yes, it would need to be vetted by building inspection, very much the way that any accessory dwelling unit is supposed to be vetted in any dwelling unit. So even for basement apartments, we are supposed to be notified. We're supposed to have permits issued. We're supposed to make sure that the windows have egress, that there's enough doors, that everything is, life safety has been considered. And that would be no different if we do permit them in detached garages. It will remain the same. It's just not in the dwelling unit any longer. It's in a different building.
I guess just following up with Darren saying what you're saying, Jennifer, but wouldn't there be more onus now on the building inspector as part of the issuance of the building permit to say, is this building going to be used potentially as a secondary residence? And then there's a whole ramification to that in the building permit process, correct?
The way that I see this playing out is if somebody has a detached garage currently, then they would have to prove to us and to our building inspection team that that building can accommodate the type of development that they're requesting in order to receive a permit.
Darren?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Jennifer. So we grant variances every 2 weeks here. Why do we not just leave it the way that it is and say it cannot be a dwelling unit? And if you want it to be one, then you come to us, and at that point in time, just like we approve many other variances, we approve the variance that at 120, whatever it is, Smith Road, that there's going to be, an apartment, built in the top of this detached garage, instead of just leaving it wide open, blanketed to everyone, I guess, that would be my statement. Yeah.
And through you, Mr. Chair, in consultation with legal counsel, I was advised that this would have to be removed in order for us to permit dwelling units in a detached garage. So it being in there, in the bylaw, stating that it is a blanket that says that it can't happen regardless. I was going to try and bring forward a similar to compatible with a garden suite, but was advised I wasn't able to do that because of the words not to be used as a dwelling unit were in the bylaw.
Can any of that be changed? So to say, if it does get removed, any of those applications have to come to PAC? Or do we care? I got a list of questions I like to talk to them about, is like water, sewer, how's that gonna accommodate that? Does it have to be, most garages aren't built to the National Building Code today. Someone's gonna live in it, who's policing that? I know, I guess town is. So I mean, someone, how many people we've built garages here lately and, you know, big garages, lofts upstairs, and we said they couldn't be a dwelling unit. They can come back now, so what, you know, I'm going back to heating. Building a house, it has to have either, you know, a furnace, a heat pump, can't have mini splits unless it has baseboard, has to have both. Who's policing all that? Electricity, where's it feeding from? Taxes, is the town getting double taxes now from that property because it's got 2 dwellings on it? So that's the basis of the whole thing then, for sure. So I just think it's gonna cause, so we got a brand new subdivision in down Godola Point Road. You got 20 houses in it, 20 detached garages. Now you got 40 something living units on one property. Why don't you just narrow the property dimensions down and allow more lots? Or force these guys that are gonna do it to have, you can't drill a well. What are they doing for well? You have to drill a new well. I'm just trying to get some, I think we need more rigor around the decision and what's behind it for the town. I mean, if I was an inspector, I'm saying, holy geez, I got a whole bunch more duties to be responsible for, and is there, you know, a checklist and everything that all has to be in place? Because I just think there's more to it than just striking that out of that clause. Just the, you know, traffic, parking, taxes, water, sewer, like all that, you know, that's may not be our concern, but going forward, it puts a draw on the system, you know, for wells and water and sewage too, and living capabilities. But that's just where my headspace is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just kind of follow what Darren's saying. So what happens now? Right, so new garage goes up. Again, that's not necessarily built to code, but not built to the code for a garage, but not for a living space. I put a living space above it. 2 years from now, snow load, whatever, something happens, who's held responsible?
Well, first of all, I'd like to backtrack a bit. Yeah, there were. I guess what I would say to that is that the building itself seems to be the concern. And I understand that they're not built to the same standard. And a lot of garages that are standing up it's only by a wing and a prayer in some cases. Those are not the garages that we're going to give a permit to and approve a dwelling unit to be in. We're only going to do that in the case where the applicant can prove to us that the building can sustain the type of development that they are requesting. That's the only time we're going to issue the permit. We wouldn't issue a permit ordinarily, you know, if those things are going to be sussed out through the process. Well, I can't control anybody who doesn't get a permit. Did you know what I'm saying, though? Like,
And I understand. No, I understand that, Jennifer. But we all know what's going to happen. As soon as this is enacted, there's going to be people say, "Oh, time for Airbnb above my garage," and you know, and they're just going to do it discreetly and not get a permit. And again, and that's not the town's responsibility, but
and they're
yeah.
probably doing it now. That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And it's not my responsibility because they didn't apply for a permit and we didn't issue one. So I guess that's really where I'm going to hang my hat, is that it's through the permitting system that we're able to manage all of this. The accessory dwelling units, they are made to have an additional parking space. They are charged a second sewer bill. They are treated as a second dwelling unit, so we do reap the taxes for 2 units on a lot as a municipality. But I can understand some concerns regarding servicing. But again, I'd like to point to the gentle densities and increasing those and affordability. And this is an apartment style dwelling. So I'm thinking that that would be more affordable for new families or young people just starting out in our community. I just read a report from Dylan that's coming soon for everybody, and it was talking about our housing needs assessment and what we've heard from our community. And the community is saying, we want affordability. We want places for our children to be able to rent here in our community and not be forced to move to St. John.
So is there any other, before we ask any other questions, is there any other municipalities or cities in the province of New Brunswick that allow this today currently?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, in fact, Moncton allows it and has allowed it for several years. I received information from Mr. Budd regarding their program, and it's very similar to what we're requesting to do here. And that's just allow the land use. The landowner has to prove to us that it's possible, that it will work, and before we would issue a permit to allow the
I
construction.
guess that's the key, prove, so go ahead, Mr.
And that was just going to be my final comment. I mean, it's great banter back and forth for us to discuss this and our beliefs and how well we feel it's going to work. But in the end, it's if the person doesn't come and get a building permit, that we can't control that. If we find out that they don't have a building permit, then there's repercussions, I guess, from that. Or if they come and want to do it in an existing building, and at that point, whether it's inspections goes there and looks at it and says, there's no way in the world that this is going to be acceptable, and it's going to cost you a fortune to upgrade this and upgrade that and upgrade the other thing, and then I guess it falls apart. But I guess it may tax our inspection department a little bit, but in the end, I guess we're supposed to follow rules. We follow rules. Some people don't follow rules, and there's consequences for that as well. But, yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. Like any idea of the volume? Like it just like planning staff have receiving inquiries and requests. Like, is like the part of the interest in like streamlining the process, or is it becoming a burden to deal with all the like? I get the density aspect of it, but I'm just trying to wondering if there's another aspect around. Is it becoming too much to deal with by having to bring it to PAC to get a variance for this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. It wouldn't be permitted, so we couldn't bring it forward to PAC for a variance. It's just not permitted. We can't allow, currently, the way that the bylaw is written, we cannot vary that.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other questions from members of PAC? Kendall, any questions? None being, I'm not sure, will anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, member of PAC, I'd like to put a motion forward or against with terms and conditions. Mr. Bishop?
I'd put a motion forward that PAC support council in their decision to permit accessory dwelling units and detached garages in R1 and RU residential zones, subject to the provisions of section 6D1 of zoning bylaw number 038.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Can I have a seconder on that, please? Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you. With that being, can we have a vote on that, please?
Mine just gone off, so I'll just say yes.
Kendall, you in or out? Kendall, you in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we, okay? In votes or no? Got a quorum?
4.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
he will
we,
be marked absent for that vote.
okay. Thank you. That motion's carried unanimously to support council on that recommendation, so best of luck with everything in that, and hopefully, building inspectors, get on them. That being, we'll move on to item 8, information items and or discussion items, none being. We're gonna move on to item 9. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Mr. Bishop,
So moved.
can I have a seconder on that, please? Brenda?
So moved.
That being, the meeting for June 25th is
January.
adjourned. June 25th.